will be talking today about the most common struggles that high performers have who want to achieve. And they ask the question, who do you want to be as the CEO or the leader in your life? If you're asking yourself that question, then you are in the right place. Christina Langdon is a coach, and many other things of which I will get into in more detail in a minute. So my apologies about that. Before we dive in, a very brief word though about the fourth floor. Many of you are members, some of you might not be members. In case you don't know, we are a marketplace that matches startups and companies to board-ready women in a trusted, efficient, and cost-effective way to disrupt the traditional board search process and also to overcome systemic barriers that have kept women out of the board candidate pipeline. We also, at the fourth floor, match underrepresented founders and fund managers with women angels and LPs. We do this in our backroom private investment club. So what this means for you, if you are a founder of a company, please consider joining us so you can tap into the incredible talent pool of 1,500 plus board-ready women who can complement your advisory board or your governing board. You can also list job opportunities on our job board. You can seek funding in our backroom private investment club if you're a woman-led or BIPOC-led company. And no matter who you are, you can benefit from a powerful peer network of around 800 other startup founders, and of course, the network in the community of all of the candidates as well. So it's a powerful value prop for founders of companies. And if you are a board-ready woman, you are listening to this and you are interested in landing your first or your third for-profit board opportunity, and or you're interested possibly in angel or LP investing, you are at the right place. So please consider joining us. So the way to join us is to come to a platform tour. We do them every Monday at noon, and we will give you some more information about what membership entails. You can figure out if it makes sense for you, and we can help onboard you and go over what those membership options are. So we will put all those links in the chat. Also, we have a board bootcamp coming up on June 13th from noon to 2. If you have never attended a board bootcamp, if you're a current member or you're not a member, it's available to everyone. And we really, really recommend that you do it because it's very substantive in its own right. There's a lot of powerful materials, templates that we provide. It's a wonderful panel discussion and a great networking opportunity. So encourage everyone to attend, whether you're a member or not. There is a code we will put in the chat that will bring the price down to $15. So it is $229 off the regular price. Okay, so hope to see you at our board bootcamp and or at a platform tour if you're not already a member. So now enough about the fourth floor. So let's get to our actual presentation and conversation of today that we were also excited about. And Christina, please join me in the spotlight so I can properly introduce you. So Christina, as I started to say before, she is a coach to visionary leaders. She is a former CRO. She is a business scale strategist, and she is an author. So she has written a book, For Success' Sake. I'm sure she'll speak a little more about that book as well when she introduces herself. She empowers C-suite women and purpose-driven companies to seize control of their lives, to rediscover their joy, and lead themselves to scale their businesses in a sustainable way. So all really great things. We're really excited, Christina, to have you here to share your insight and your wisdom with the fourth floor community. So thank you so much. And with that, let me officially hand the stage over to you to introduce yourself and take it from here.
Breen, thank you so much. I am so flattered to be here and want to thank Kat for inviting me. And wow, I think that boot camp sounds amazing. So thank you all for letting me take a few minutes of your time today to talk about what I talk about a lot, what I've learned a lot about. We're here to really talk about how do we want to scale our businesses and what we do. And I have found to scale your businesses, you have to start with scaling your mind. I want the next half hour, 35 minutes to be engaging and interactive. Nothing I'm going to say is entirely new. It's just my story. And it's really my proven success story. Much of what I'm sharing you've likely heard somewhere before in some shape or form, but you're going to hear it today through my experience. And I hope you see a bit of yourself in my story so that you can borrow from it for ammunition, for ignition, to help you build belief in yourself and your success and your ability to scale your business. So we're here to talk today about success and scaling your business. I'm going to share with you some things that have helped define my success, but I also want you to begin defining yours. So make sure that you have a pen and a paper. We're going to do a little bit of workshopping. And I want to thank you in advance for engaging and participating. And I'm going to leave time at the end for you all to ask questions. To scale my business and to scale my success and to really scale my happiness, I needed to decide on the future I wanted and how I wanted to scale my business. And I needed to believe in myself and believe in the extraordinary future that I could create. Belief is more important than anything, and it's something that we're not taught. We're not taught to believe in ourselves, particularly women. Scaling my business started with scaling my brain and moving from the thoughts that I didn't deserve or that I shoulda, woulda, coulda, thoughts of judgment that I had, thinking that others had of me and that I had also for myself. And I needed to move to the thoughts of who I wanted to become. And I needed to believe in myself and believe that I deserved more. And I wanted to feel at that time more joy, ease, and impact. So now I'm going to give you the sort of obligatory, this is who I am. What I can tell you is life is not a waiting room. And I spent 30 years in a waiting room of sorts. You could read my LinkedIn profile, my CV, and you would see these successive rise to the C-suite. I worked in the media business, working for big name brands for almost 30 years. I spent 20 of them working for Martha Stewart. I was the publisher of Body and Soul, the publisher of Everyday Food. I was the associate publisher of Martha Stewart Living for years and years and years. I joke that on any given lunch hour, you could find me in the Barnes & Noble on 46th Street in the self-help aisle. And the leadership, the business leadership, it's where I really fell in love with developing myself, because if you know anything about Martha Stewart, I was there through her going to trial for lying to federal agents and her actually going to prison and working to build the company back from what was a loss to building it back to profitability in 2 years. So I needed a lot of support. So I found it oftentimes in that self-help aisle. My last role in media was as the chief revenue officer at Fast Company. I did some of the most amazing things in my career at Fast Company that I can recount. Unbelievable. But there were these nudges, these whispers, these sort of gnawing inside my stomach that I thought that this would be easier, that I thought that, is this it? Is this all there is? I wasn't living into my purpose, and it was sort of gnawing at me every single day, and I was feeling badly, like I'd arrived. I felt like it would be easier. But there was that knocking that said there was something more for me out there. While I looked perfect on paper, I was really perfectly miserable. A little bit shaming myself, like shame and blaming that I could even feel that way. I didn't really believe I deserved anything else. And then as the story unfolds, Inc. magazine and Fast Company are owned by the same company, Mansueto Ventures, and they combined the two brands. And in that combination, I was exiled. And while I was shocked and disappointed, it really was that knock that I really needed to think about what I wanted to do with my life. And I had somebody who worked with me at Fast Company who had been out on medical leave for some time. She called me after I'd been exiled to tell me that I had changed her life both personally and professionally. She told me, why wasn't I a coach? She asked me, why wasn't I a coach? And I had a lot of judgment around that because I was living to expectations that others had for me. I was living to these incredibly high expectations. That wasn't really me. My inside was not matching my outside. She told me that I had the ability of seeing where others couldn't see, that I could see things, but I could see them more clearly. So I did it. I dove in. I led my first workshop, Living Your Extraordinary Life, 8 women, a half day. It was amazing. I was in flow. I felt energy, all the things. I felt like this was it. But at the same time, I didn't feel well. I went to have a blood test that day. And 2 days later, I was put into the hospital. I was diagnosed with AML leukemia and went through treatment for 12 months. I bring it up. I'm not pounding my chest here. I'm bringing it up because don't let a health challenge or getting burnt out running your business and having health issues. Like, don't wait for that to happen before you decide to get decided about what it is that you really want to achieve, because you can achieve it without sort of hitting rock bottom. I learned so much in this time. What I learned is that as a survival tactic, I got into scaling my brain. What if I survived? What could I do? Could I launch my business from my hospital bed? Again, I'm not pounding my chest, but I'm getting you to think about, I lived in the what if, and I want you all here to live in that what if. So the Cambridge Institute of Technology did a study on success, and it said that success was made up of 3 components: environment, skill, and psychology. Psychology, if you dig into the research more deeply, psychology represents 85% of what makes up success. You know, we go and we get our MBAs, we go to college to get our degrees, we learn skills, we know how to do Excel, all the things, but no one is teaching us about our mindset and how to use our mindset to help empower us. And that's what I really want to talk to you about today. I work with CEOs and high performers to help them scale their businesses. CEOs tend to come to me and they all have these same struggles. They struggle with imposter syndrome. They struggle with not thinking they're enough. Here are a list of just some of the struggles that I see over and over and over again. And this is when the who that you want to be as a CEO becomes messy. It becomes unclear. It becomes unfocused. We all here hold the title of CEO because we're the CEOs of me, right? Whoever you are, whoever your title is, the power of your mind to scale your life and your businesses is at its core. So how do we know where this messy mind that we have, that's all about mindset, all of those things above are about mindset, how do they show up in our days? This is just a few of the things: that a calendar's out of control, that you're doing the hard work. I would say the hard work is the hard work you're doing on default. It's not the real hard work. I'll get more to that in a little bit, but that we are quick to be distracted. Our to-do lists are longer than we know what to do with. And we have a business that has potential to scale, but we're not sure how to do it. That's how it shows up. So I've worked with a health company in the women's health space, and I've worked with them in their C-suite to help them scale their business through all these tactical elements. 3 years ago, when I started working with them, the doctor had a vision for her extraordinary future. That extraordinary future for her business had her leading from her vision that was serving not just her patients, but women's health. So I worked with her on how she was going to get herself out of serving patients every single day to actually being a CEO in service. And that was all mindset work. So let's dive into it. So the CEO self-concept. This is something that I work on with clients all the time. CEOs who work to develop their self-concept. I define it as knowing, becoming, and making decisions from your CEO self. The CEO self-concept shows up in how they manage their time. When you look at your calendar, around the room here, when you look at your calendar, do you see your future self in that calendar? Your CEO self-concept is something that's built over time, from a place looking out to your future to decide ahead of time of who you want to become. We don't oftentimes spend time on who we want to become, and we need to be doing that if we want to scale our businesses and become what we want to become. Who we are today as the CEO of you in your life is something that actually has to be defined ahead of time. So I want to spend just a minute or so talking about confidence and competency. Two words that sound familiar, pronounced similarly, but are very different. So confidence is a mindset. And the most common thing I see accomplished, successful, interesting, and powerful people struggle with is their confidence. Confidence that gets in the way is typically situational, right? So put in the chat, what's the opposite of confidence? When you're not feeling confident, what would be the opposite of that? I'd love to see some things come into the chat there. Because oftentimes I find it's easy to say what confidence isn't versus what confidence is. So let's see, doubt, insecure, nervous, fear of judgment. Yes, yes, keep it coming. So we can come up with that list pretty quickly. Confidence is a feeling. Confidence is not a fact. Confidence is not a result. And confidence is not evidence of competency. Competency is a skill. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a psychological paradox that we often face, that less competent people see themselves as more competent, while more competent, smart, capable, skillful people tend to doubt themselves and doubt their abilities. So the lower the skill level, the higher the confidence. Let's not focus on those people who are overly confident. We know them. Let's focus on us. The higher the competency, the higher the likelihood of self-doubt. Smart, capable people underestimate their abilities. How about you? So here's a quick story. I got put into the emergency room the night I was diagnosed with AML leukemia. My family and friends were standing around me. I could see the whites in their eyes that were mirroring how I was feeling and how fearful I was. Rounds and rounds of doctors and nurses came in asking me the same questions. Then Dr. Park came in. Dr. Jamil Park came in and he gave me a thought that changed my whole life. He said, you don't come to Memorial Sloan Kettering to be treated. You come to Memorial Sloan Kettering to be cured. That one thought changed my life. It was like game on. It was a mindset mover like you can't even believe. Now, in that moment, did I want him to be confident or did I want Dr. Park to be competent? So when you look at his bio, you see he's got all these letters after his name. He's earned so much credibility. He has put himself through school. So he knew the cocktail to make in chemotherapy to cure me. I cared more about his competency at that moment than I cared about him being confident. I needed his competency to save my life. So when we're in doubt, think about your competency over your confidence. Now, remember, confidence is a mindset. So when you're thinking about your confidence and you're thinking about maybe some of those things that you put in the chapter, the self-doubt, the insecurity, who would you be if you knew that those doubts were actually the beacon leading you to your success? Can you drop it into the chat? What would be different if you knew your doubts were actually the keys to your success? Does anybody have any thoughts there? What would be different for you today if you never self-doubted again? Because you knew that when it creeped up, it was actually a signal of your confidence. My business would expand further. I love that. Thank you, Virginia. So these are questions that help get us into possibility. Kat says, my career, having more wealth, Deborah. I'd have less anxiety about the doubts. That is sort of a cyclone that happens, right? I would handle the prevention questions differently. I'd have less anxiety. So think about that. That is just amazing. So getting into possibility is super important as we are working on our CEO self-concept. When we are feeling a lack of confidence, and sometimes that comes up in the shouldings. We should on ourselves all the time. And that's really looking at the past. When we're developing our mindset and working on our CEO self-concept, we are thinking about our future. So try asking yourself, what if, what's possible? We are the only species that has imagination. When you have insecurity and self-doubt, when you're feeling anxious and stressed, you're actually coming from the smallest part of your brain, which is the amygdala. It sits back here in the back of your head, and it's tiny. But guess what? The larger part of our brain, the largest part of our brain is the prefrontal cortex, and that's where imagination sits. We don't use our imagination to really decide who we want to become. And that's what we're going to do a little bit about that today. Dan Sullivan, he's like the OG. He's a leader and influencer. He's one of the first business coaches out there. I love this quote of his. The only way to make your future, your present better is to make your future bigger. When you think about Elon Musk, you think about Jeff Bezos, you think about even Sarah Blakely. All of them came out with outrageous ideas of the everyday store, the superstore, of electric vehicles, of sending spaceships, and of actually breaking a marketplace with a new shapewear. Everybody told them that they couldn't, but they got into belief. Remember, we don't believe in ourselves. Those three, they got into belief, and they started taking action from that belief, and they started creating their results. And look at them now. They are no different from you or I. They imagined a future that was bigger than themselves. How much time do you spend a week thinking about, working on, and developing your future self? So let's take that even deeper, and I want you to put into the chat. When you think about how much time do you spend working in your business every week? How much time do you spend working on your business? And when I'm saying on, I'm really saying that future business. I'm not saying the quarter or the year. I'm really thinking about the future that you're looking to create and who you want to become. Put in the chat your percentages. Take a wild guess. Now, I want to share with you that most people will say at this time, they'll raise their hand and they'll say, well, what's the right equation? How much time should I be spending on my future? And Teresa says 50-50 here, 100%, 80-20. I see a lot of 80-20s, but the answer of what's the right answer is there's no right answer. It's likely if you are spending more time working on the future of your business, working on developing on who you want to become today for tomorrow, the likelihood is that you'll be scaling your businesses faster. Oftentimes, oh, I love Deborah. She's 100% working on the future. We love that. As you scale your business, the likelihood is that you will be spending more time creating the future of it instead of inside of it. So when you think about what you're working on, what are you spending time on every week? There's so much sneaky stuff that us leaders and CEOs do every week that doesn't even make the calendar. I want to spend just 1 minute, and I want you to think about, write down all the things that you did last week. All of the things, including all the things that you wish maybe you shouldn't be doing. I'm going to give you about 1 minute. Okay, now look at that list. An asterisk check, you make a decision of how you want to market. But Mark, when your business is at scale, when it goes and grows the way you want to be, when you become your future self, what are the things you will no longer be doing? Teresa, except delegating. She said everything, and then she revised it to say except delegating. So what are the things you no longer want to be doing? Because when you get really, really clear on the future of who you're becoming, you will start making decisions about who you're becoming today. You will be looking at those asterisks or those check marks on that list, and you will be deciding today, if I want to get there, it means I can't do this today, or I can't do this in a month, or I need to have a solve for delegating, right? I don't want to ever follow up, says Breen. Everything except delegating. I love this. Project management, proposals, follow up. So John Maxwell is another, he's written tons of books. He's a leadership guru. And he has a book that's actually called Success and Significance. And we have to get decided and defined about who we want to become. And when we think about success, a successful leader leads, a successful physician heals, a successful executive does exceptional work. But think about it. That's expected. Success in these terms is really expected today. But what's significant about work? What's significant about what you're doing? So when you think about significance, this is how John Maxwell puts it. And I think it's important for us to think about who we want to become is about how we want to show up significant in our days. Significance is representative of who you want to become. It's a statement, being significant, that's decided ahead of time before you've ever become it. Significance is how you show up to create and do for others, have impact, and leave a legacy. Significance is an engine to help you scale your brain, to scale your business. When you know what you want to be and how significant you want to be, that's coming from part of your future self, right? When you are clear on your significance and have clarity around how you want to show up with it, you're going to start to feel successful, which is what we all want. What is significant about how you're showing up today? Or what's significant about how you want to show up today or this week? Can you drop it into the chat for me? What is significant about how you want to show up? Jeff Bezos has a famous quote that says, "You are the person that people describe when you leave the room." How do you want people to describe you? Deciding ahead of time will have you showing up as her today. I love it. My energy and capacity to listen. I want to show up for my COO and empower him to lead and scale the company. Love that. Barbara says disciplined and someone who you can count on. Kat says the creative. Love it. Okay. So success. What's your definition of success? My definition, because I needed to do the work. I am a product of my product. Success is not something that's material or it's not money. We know this intellectually, right? Success isn't somewhere out there. You know, I oftentimes think about when people are thinking it's not enough, I'm doing too much, I never do enough, shaming and blaming, all those lists from earlier. It's like sailing to meet the horizon. If we haven't put a line in the sand, we'll never get there. Trying to get to the horizon, you know, it's just that sort of hamster wheel that has us running and not really going anywhere. So we have to define what success looks like. And I'm looking here on the chat, a positive attitude is significant, making the difference you set out for others. Oh, I love that. So success for me, I defined it, and I want you to get out your pen and paper because I want you all to define it here today for yourself. Most people, most leaders who I ask when I say, have you defined success? Have you written it down? You know, hope is not a strategy. We learn this. Thinking what success is. I mean, that's sort of, you know, swimming to that horizon. It'll be a dream that goes unmet unless it's put on paper. Success for me was feeling successful, F-U-L-L, full of joy, ease, and impact. And I defined it. What is joy? Joy is doing what I love, and joy is spending more time with my family. Ease is getting more time back from my scaled business so that I can spend more time with my family. Impact is creating more books, is writing more, is creating IP, is reaching more people. to help them define their own success and scale their businesses. So I've been very prescriptive. So I want you all to take, we're going to do this quick, 3 minutes, define success in 3 minutes, but this will be a start. I want you to define it. I want you to describe it. I want you to think about how it feels when you're there. When you know the feelings, we can start to then intentionally create the possibility behind it. So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes here to define success, maybe 2, because I want to make sure we have time. Got about 30 more seconds. Okay, I love this. Virginia wrote in the chat, Virginia, you're like my hero. Success, I'll have more freedom, time, and energy to expand my business and start to actually relax. So I can not only lead women in their soulful work and living, but I can be the leader I want to be as I level up. Grounding for the expansive win. That's so beautifully written. So now when you think about having more freedom, what does that look like? I think you've got to define how many hours a week you want to work. And then we have to reverse engineer that. Well, what has to happen for you to get to those hours? Green said, change the way people are thinking about advisoring and governing boards and the balance of power. We have figured out a market solution that addresses the gender power wealth gap by incentivizing private companies of all sizes to diverse talent in advisor and directory seats, deeply satisfying, like I have contributed towards the arc. So when we're looking at defining success, we're at the other side sort of the mountain. We have to sort of bridge the gap from where we are now to where we want to be. What needs to happen on that bridge? When we think about that, those rope bridges, they can kind of feel a little wobbly, and that's okay. But we have to put that bridge together. We sort of have to reverse engineer from our success, our definition of success. Patina says, success to me is taking care of my mental and physical health, making it a priority. Without your health, you have nothing. This feels like freedom to show up for my team, to scale. I love that. Oh my gosh. Be loud, credible voice and using it to make real change, feel proud and have made a real impact towards gender equality. This is wonderful. So my question to all of you is, now that you've started to define it, how does it show up in your calendar today? So I am a very big believer in this short period of time, knowing that to scale our business. You can have the best scaling tactics ever, but without your mindset being clear on who you want to become and how you want to get there, the best scaling strategies won't work. And what I have found with the CEOs that I work with is when they work on training their brain every single day, it ends up producing and creating the results that they want. Training your brain every single day is work. It's deliberate, it's intentional, it's consistent. Training our brain is where we really get to do, remember I said earlier, the hard work, but not the hard work. It's only 10 minutes a day, but it's also the hard work of us becoming the CEO that we want to become. Arianna Huffington, Warren Buffett, Oprah, they all have the same thing in common. Money, yes, money, lots of money, and we want that, right? But they also have something else in common. They journal. Now, a lot of the CEOs that I talk to, like some of them, same thing with the mindset. They think mindset's like a 4-letter word. They think journaling's like a 4-letter word. I'm not here to necessarily sell you on journaling, but what I am selling you on is that if you spend 10 minutes a day to train your brain around who you want to become and how that's going to show up today, you will see real results happen. So when I start off in my practice with clients, this is really what we answer every single day. We look at what worked yesterday, what didn't work yesterday, and what they would do differently. We don't spend enough time auditing ourselves. I know that sounds a little funky, but really looking at what would I have done differently in that meeting? If I had shown up as my future self today in that meeting, what would that have looked like? Because we can't do it differently unless we learn from where we're not doing what we want to be doing. And so when you audit it every day, it becomes a natural practice that you're constantly growing from. Today, if you were going to give yourself an A grade, what would that look like? What will you have accomplished? Deciding that ahead of time has you almost there. And you're going to commit to your future today by every day we have to commit to our future. I've written about my future today in my journal this morning. It's 10 minutes a day. We train for marathons, right? We try to get our best, beat our personal best on the Peloton. We do a lot of training. Why not training for our mind? If we know that 85% of success comes from mindset, if we want to scale our businesses, we have to do it from training the mindset that we want. We want to feel confident every day. We have to work to understand the feelings of confidence when we're feeling in flow. When we're coming from a place of who is the CEO I'm becoming, answering that question, then we will likely feel a little bit more confident, even when we're showing up to do work that we may sometimes not feel that confident about. So in the book For Success' Sake, it's written with very small, short chapters. Each chapter has an exercise. Each chapter has a thought prompt for you to work on. Every single week, I ask readers to read one chapter to help them train their mind. It's all based on the premise of you are the biggest influencer in your life. And when you recognize your influence over you, it's a game changer. Too often, we're looking for outside people to validate us, to give us permission. We have everything we need in here. We just have to spend the time every week. I call it super think time. Thinking about the future we want and then creating it. So we're going to get to Q&A here. I've got the preface of the book. In this QR code, you're welcome to take your phone and take it over it to get the preface of the book. You can also go on to my website to get the preface for free. It's available on Amazon. But I really want to answer your questions and anything you want in particular in terms of what you're thinking about scaling your businesses. I am happy to answer those questions. You can either come off mute or you can put it into the chat. I'll keep talking if no one's going to answer questions. Hold on. So what are your thoughts on self-sabotage? And you've got financial in there, which I would love, Deborah, for you to give me a little bit more example on that financial. Like we self-sabotage ourselves all the time. We shame, we blame ourselves every single day. We should. Watch for when you use the shoulds in your day, because what you do is you're actually shaming yourselves. People self-sabotage themselves by not really thinking about their future. It goes back to kind of what I was saying. And sometimes when we get success, we start self-sabotaging ourselves because we're afraid of success. Awareness is powerful. It's where every piece of change comes from, is by becoming aware of it. So I'd be curious at where you think your self-sabotage is showing up.
Oh,
Okay.
it shows up in my net worth, right? If I think back to where I was in 2013, I'd say my net worth would have been 2.5, maybe 3 million. And now it is 0. And there have been a few recoveries, but never quite up to that level. And I can't figure out in my mind what is working against me, right? I know I'm capable. I did that. That was also a very unconscious approach to life. So as I got more conscious and cared more about feelings and got in touch with those and thought about possibility and all that there are so many other things that bring me joy than just that single focus of making money. But I need to find a way to marry them.
Need a balance. So what is your theory?
I think you're right about the fear. We're more fearful of how great we could be. But I also think there's something about self-worth. It's got to be to tie to the worth part.
So it's interesting, when we lose our jobs or when we lose money, like you're suggesting, we make it about our self-worth. So that's a circumstance. I'm not sure what happened with your circumstance, but something happened where your income, your financial status went from one place to another. And all of a sudden you've made it about your self-worth instead of what the circumstances were and learning from them. So in everything we do, and people say, they're afraid to fail, we fail every day, right? Failing is learning. And my coach says that you're either winning or you're learning. So I wonder if you could remove the very personal part of it and how it's actually ended up in your heart. I would do an audit of what's actually going on there, because I wonder if you could be looking, if you looked at the numbers, or if you looked at your theory of what was actually happening and you pulled it away from your self-worth, that you'd be able to see something more clearly.
It may be that I decided that money wasn't the be all end all, but it needs to be in there. It just perhaps isn't the only or the top.
So where do you want it to be?
Yeah, number 2 or 3.
And if you are planning for your future and becoming your future self, what does that look like for you? Instead of looking back, there's a book out there that's called The Gap and the Gain. It's written by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. It's called The Gap and the Gain. When we look back at what we should have or could have in our past, it doesn't help us create the future. So what do you want to create? What can you think about what you want to create from here that would allow you to live into your purpose and feeling good about what you're doing and also create some money? What do you think your first next step would be if I asked?
I would say the long-term goal is conscious wealth and financial stability. I think the next step is just restoring the income stream, right? Paying off the debt and then rebuilding the wealth.
Short-term investment for long-term gain.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, if Kat or Brink, if you could help me with the questions here, I'm sort of lost in all of this great feedback.
Right, and there are so many great questions. Okay, so starting with one, which is strategies to combat negative thoughts.
So we have this is key. This could be a great takeaway for everyone. We have 60,000 thoughts a day. 90% of them are in our subconscious, and most of those thoughts are negative. we are really, really tough on ourselves. We're the worst, like, it's like having a bad roommate that you can't get away with. So when you think about the negative thoughts, we have to see them, pushing them down like, a balloon in our pool. Like if we're pushing down one of those plastic balloons, it comes up back up with more force. Pushing down negative thoughts will not serve you. But we have to see the negative thoughts before we can intentionally create more positive ones to replace them. And you can, it's a practice. Seeing your negative thoughts has you downloading them every day. We have to write them down. We have to see who they are. I like the process of writing our negative thoughts down at one time every single day so that we can leave them on the page. We put our negative thoughts and we choose to leave them on the page as much as we can. It's like cleaning out the closet. Think about having 60,000 pieces of clothing in your closet. You're cleaning them out. You put them on your big bed for 60,000. After you clean out your closet, what's left over? It's a trick question a little bit, but when we clean out our closets, we always find the dust bunnies. You have to take your negative thoughts, all the thoughts of the day, and put them on paper so that you can see what you're missing. Because when you see what you're missing, you can clean that up. And then you can put the 60,000 thoughts back in your closet, organized by color, so that you can quickly take the thought or the piece of clothing that you want. So the negative thoughts have to be recognized. You have to become aware of them. And then you have to see them for what they are. Are they true? Finding evidence of self-worth, I'm no longer worthy, or finding evidence of I really suck, I'm impatient. If you cannot find evidence that will be backed in a court of law, then it's not true. And then you can think about, well, how do I want to feel? And I make a list. It's your future self. How do you want to feel as your future self? And what would you be doing today if you were that future self to help train your brain away from the negative to more positively and with intention to create new thoughts? So I hope that helps.
Oh my gosh, I love that answer. Thank you so much. Okay, another question I selfishly want to ask because it was my own. Strategies to help you prioritize the priorities. So what if every single thing is a fire drill, too many plates in the air? Advice on how to effectively pare back, like, kind of regain control. Is there something you could do each day or each week that could help you navigate that?
Well, one of the filters when we're prioritizing everything, we prioritize nothing. We know that. And what we focus on is what we create. What we focus on is what we create. So when you're thinking about your future self and thinking about scaling your business and thinking about your biggest goals, I'd go through your priority list and I'd say, if this isn't going to 10x my life, if this isn't going to 10x me to my goal, if this thing isn't 10x of momentum or fuel, then it goes to the bottom of the list. But the to-do list is like a trap. Talk about self-sabotage. I think it really comes from the calendar. You have to plan your calendar. Your calendar should be thoughtfully planned. You should have time every single week to think about your priorities ahead of time, so that when your list gets longer, you can go back to, I'm going to spend time on Thursday. I've got time 3 to 5 where I'm going to do all this work. It's really getting intentional on how you use your time. I hope that helped.
It's a great answer. Okay, there's a couple of questions in the chat about combating mental resistance. And they're both kind of, I feel like, describing a little bit maybe procrastination, or there's something that you know that you want to do, but you're having a really difficult time getting yourself to take that first step or to actually do the thing that would benefit you versus relax, take time off.
Well, it's important when we think about our thoughts. What we know in neuroscience is that our thoughts are what create our feelings that put us into action and produce our results. It's called a lot of different things. You can call it TFAR, you can call it the model. But when you get to the action, thoughts, feelings, actions, results, when you get to the action, procrastination, inaction is actually an action. Typically, we procrastinate around our most important priorities. That's kind of a default that our brain goes to. Procrastination is a signal of something that you need to focus on, right? And we don't want to shame and blame ourselves for procrastinating and sitting in inaction. What we want to do is come up with an idea and a thought, a simple one, that would help us get into action. So I would really think about what is the end result of what you're trying to create and reverse engineer it. As business people, we always have to be thinking about what are the outcomes we're trying to create. And if you're sitting in procrastination, you're not creating that outcome. So I would take off one little tip of that procrastination and I'd try to solve for it. If you're having trouble climbing the mountain, just climb a little bit. Okay.
I always tell myself action is the antidote to despair. Well, you know, as someone prone to procrastination, if I ever feel that, I'm like, I always have that phrase in my head. So I'm like, act somewhere, somehow. And that, you know, can sometimes trigger a bigger action. Anyway, sorry, I'm not the expert.
No, but I absolutely love that. But think about it. I was really successful because I'd taken so many actions, but I was miserable. So we really want to be taking actions from the thoughts we want to create. What if the thought around procrastination was, I've got this? If you really felt like you've got it, how would it feel? And if you felt that way, what action would you take? Part of it is believing in yourself. Belief is something that we need to work on every single day. Building belief, build it from the evidence that you've already created in your past. So
love it.
We
Okay,
only have a little bit left here. What else can I answer?
Okay, yeah, there's so many questions. Okay, so do you have an example of a thoughtfully planned calendar? People would love to see it. If there's anything you could share. And then I have more questions.
I actually have a calendar exercise that I have all of my clients go through. It's called a calendar audit, and it's auditing from the future you want to create. So it all comes back around to that. If you want to email me at Christina@ChristinaLangdon.com, I will send you the exercise. It's a 3 or 4 page exercise. It does take some time though. There's a lot of work to do in creating your future calendar, the example calendar of where you are today, and then coming up with that interim calendar as you're getting to your future calendar. I'm happy to share that with anyone here. Christina@ChristinaLangdon.com. There was something about leading. I saw, what was the question about leading our teams? I forget what the question is, but if you come up with it, you can just interrupt me here, Breen. Leading is not telling. And knowing is an understanding. So our teams tend to know what they're doing. But until we start leading from a place of vision and leading from expectation, and expectation is not just having them know what they're working on, but it's also giving them an understanding what's at risk and what's the possibility when they work on what they're working on. Oftentimes, those are things that leaders miss. They think leading is telling, and they think knowing should be enough.
Okay, great answer. And that kind of answered the question, which was tips for talking to your team about the priorities you're setting for yourself. So delegating with context, which is essentially what you just said.
And I would follow that up with one addition, and that is you should have 3 priorities that you're working on at any given moment as the CEO of your business, 3 major priorities. And the priorities underneath that for your executive team, they should probably have about 5 priorities that cascade off of your priorities. Your priorities should always be aligned, and those priorities, those 3 and those 5, should be reviewed every week. Oh my gosh, what else?
Okay, question. Men in venture have sidelined women to the tune of investing zero capital into women. Okay, we talk about this a lot. In order to participate in entrepreneurship, one has to ignore reality, and ignoring reality is unhealthy. What actions could one possibly take in a zero investment environment as a woman that isn't cognitive dissonance? Oof.
It's tough. I'm not going to be able to solve for that because lots of people have come before me who haven't solved it. I agree with it. The numbers are pretty clear. But here's what I'll offer you is that people buy based on feelings. So I talked to you about the model, thoughts, feelings, actions, results. So I would get into their model. I would get into the male investor model. What are they thinking when you're presenting to them? What are they thinking coming in? What feelings do you think they have? And from that, what negative actions, as you've suggested, might they take? And then I would come up with, what are the thoughts that you want them to have coming out of your presentation? How do you want them to feel coming out of your presentation? Now, remember, this is about them feeling and getting them from their initial model and what they're thinking to a model that's very, very different. And then creating your presentation and your thoughts to answer those new thoughts and how you want to create those new thoughts and their thinking. They may be thinking, oh, she's a woman, she can't do it. That's overstating it. I shouldn't say it that way. But how can you give them a thought that would change their mind from their point of view, not yours?
Oh, God, that describes so much of what women have to do so much of the time.
And I work with people trying to get investment all the time. And when we get into their model, when we get into the investor's head and we answer those questions from their point of view, in their words, that's where success can happen.